So I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think power scaling overall gets a bad reputation, and honestly, I can see why. A part of me thinks it deserves the reputation it gets. Make no mistake about it, it's silly, dumb, and it should go against everything I stand for as an anime fan. You're basically taking a statement that a mangaka made just for entertainment and blowing it way out of proportion. With that said, I actually kind of like power scaling. Now, I know a lot of people would think that I would be the type of guy to hate power scaling, and I get it, but actually, no. In my opinion, not only are people overreacting about power scaling or conflating something else about the power scaling community, and don't worry, we'll get to that, but I actually think it's good, especially for anime. So this video is why power scaling is good, actually. So yeah, long ass intro done. And that means Malik, run the track.
I said off the rip, I don't care what they say. Spin the block, let it rip like some Beyblades. Got them holding on to their damn crucifix. I'm shutting everything down. Mwah, Pluto's kiss. Got them like, who is this? Malik with the newest. I got it and I ain't losing it. I'm too smart, too clever. I'm going full demon mode. And you actually can never. Now that we are here, the ops really want peace. Team full of crew villains carry more than one piece. Married to the streets, got down on one knee. Team eating real good, teethering on gluttony. I heard all the chirping, and I heard the beacon too. You claim you got a cannon, you just might need two. Heard you talking big, I'll give you a week or two. We are gonna turn you into ash if we get a Pikachu.
Okay, let's back up for the new people here. What is power scaling? Power scaling, for the uninitiated, is taking a character and scaling how powerful they would actually be. This often means a fan will take the information given to us by the author to measure speed, strength, mentality, versatility, agility, etc., etc. And more often than not, this is used to see how this character would stack up in a hypothetical fight against another character that they've never faced before. Usually that other character is in another series or IP, anime or otherwise. So think Death Battle, Swag Kage's Naruto Versus series, and yeah, we'll get to him. But yeah, it's silly, it's ridiculous, and honestly, I can see why people would think these guys need to touch grass. However, here's my thing. I see a lot of parallels between power scaling and something else that is way more accepted, I'd even say encouraged, which is debating sports athletes' greatness. So let me explain. If you're subbed and you've been paying attention, you'll see that in addition to loving anime, I'm also a massive sports fan. I mean, I've played them for almost all of my entire life, so yeah. Why does that matter? Well, trust me when I say that the way sports fans talk about athletes nowadays using stats and feats to prove one athlete is better than another is almost identical to how anime power scalers talk about an anime character. Now, granted, it's not an exact one-to-one. After all, the outcomes in sporting events are not predetermined by someone else's pen, unless it's pro wrestling. But still, my point is, yes, the outcomes are spontaneous, and someone is taking a risk to go out and become great at a sport without even knowing the outcome. Whereas maybe debating what some mangaka put in a manga or what some author put in a light novel is kind of asinine in comparison when looking at it like that. But so? Just like anime, a sports player being great does not affect you, the person sitting at home. And yeah, seeing an athlete like LeBron being great can be inspirational, but can't a child or adult be inspired by Goku or Naruto as well? Like, I'm really trying to figure out what is the difference when you're looking at it as an entertainment medium. Okay, So, all that aside, if I feel like they are similar, why is sports debates accepted, if not encouraged? Well, it's a way to remember the great athletes of old and new, of past and present. Let's stick to basketball because A, I mentioned LeBron, and B, this is actually the most fiery of all the sports in my opinion when it comes to sports debates. So be real with me, y'all. Would we remember Michael Jordan's accolades as much if he's not brought up in every GOAT debate? You know what? Let me even lower the bar. Would the mainstream even bring up Michael Jordan in every conversation if he wasn't considered one of the GOATs? Because I'll tell you who isn't brought up in conversation: Clyde Drexler, a multiple-time All-Star and NBA champion who is thought of as a footnote in comparison to MJ. Now, part of that is because MJ ate his lunch every time they faced, but that's kind of the point. He's still a great player. See, we talk about Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Larry and Magic, but no one ever brings up Billy Cunningham, Dave Cowens, Robert Parrish, and Elgin Baylor. But this is Michael Talks Anime, so let me bring it back to anime. Despite not having an arc to write home about since the Cell game saga, still, to this day, when the mainstream thinks anime, they think Dragon Ball Z. But no one ever brings up Gurren Lagann, unless you're talking to hardcore fans. People bring up Naruto, Bleach, and other classics in the power scaling community, like even Death Note somehow. Yet, no one ever brings up Cardcaptor Sakura and Urusei Yatsura, despite both series getting a reboot in 2018 and 2022 respectively. The point is this: when you power scale, it's a way for people to remember, spread the word, and by extension, grow the medium's reach. And for a channel called Michael Talks Anime, I would love that. And also, be real with me for a second. Is there a second boom with AOT and My Hero without a Dragon Ball Z or Naruto? You'd be lying to yourself if you said yes. And here's the thing. Sometimes power scalers don't even bring up the strongest characters, just like NBA fans don't even bring up the best players in these conversations. For example, Sailor Moon and their cast of characters would take their Sailor boot and shove it so far up your favorite strong character's ass that their breath would smell like sailor leather. Just like on the sports side, no one ever talks about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Hakeem the Dream in the NBA. And as a result, sure, they may ring a bell to somebody, but they're kind of thought of as an afterthought in the conversation. A lot of people forget just how great and how much of a cultural impact they were in their day. So circling back to Sailor Moon, a lot of people will talk about Sailor Moon like, oh yeah, I remember it, but they don't really remember it. And look, I'm not saying power scaling or debating is the only way to grow their respective medium. Cultural impact matters just as much, if not more, for every subgenre, every medium, and everything you like. After all, for every Allen Iverson or the late great Kobe Bryant, there's a Neon Genesis Evangelion or a Yu Yu Hakusho. But my point is that power scaling is a way to remember and grow the medium. And I'm all for remembering the greats to a healthy extent, so let these power scalers be power scalers. Now, I can already hear people in the comment section saying, hey, I can see your point, but that doesn't mean that power scalers aren't rude. And see, here's my thing. I'm just not so sure that's the case, or that that's a fair argument to make when talking about power scalers. Okay, let me explain like this. There's a concept called the dozens. For all my non-black friends, let me explain using the show Smart Guy.
There are other ways, my young friend. We call the technique the dozens.
The what?
The dozens. Snaps. Look, man, if you want to trade insults with somebody, you gotta hit them where it hurts. Watch the masters. Yes! Look here, man. Your mama's hair is so short, when she rolls it, she uses rice. Your daddy, he got a wooden leg with a wheel on and he run like this.
See, the dozens is playful roasting until someone gives up. There is kind of an understanding that it is done with 2 willing participants, and there is a line that you will not cross. Why am I talking about this? Well, it's not an exact one-to-one, but anime power scalers, just like NBA debaters, video game debaters, etc., are playing their own version of the dozens. I know it sounds ridiculous, but think about it. There's an understanding of 2 willing participants who step into an arena of sorts and go back and forth with each other until one gives up. And on that point, there is an understanding that you can insult each other because it's competition, as long as you bring it back to the topic at hand. So, if you're on the outside looking in, it may look like way too much just because 2 people are playing the dozens. But is it? Are you perhaps stepping into the arena unknowingly? Are you not understanding what is going on and casting your own judgments on people who like anime power scaling without getting to know them and the arena you're in? And perhaps does that mean that you're actually not taking the time to understand before making a sweeping judgment? In other words, if you're on Twitter, MAL forums, or Reddit and you say so-and-so can beat Goku and someone comes back with some stats, you kind of get what you get. I'm sorry. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes you aren't right about power scalers being rude and maybe crossing a line. So if you are anti-power scaling, I get it. There have been times where I've been sick of this community as well and have rolled my eyes or washed my hands with them. There have been times where lines are crossed, and there are power scalers who foster toxic ass environments, and it can be especially frustrating when you just want to have fun debates about your favorite anime characters. Now, before people misunderstand what I'm saying, it's not like these people who want to have fun debates are looking for TVO Kids versions of how debates will go. Wait a second, I think that's a Canadian only reference. Okay, go look it up. My point is that they're not looking to have the kid gloves on. But what I am saying is that you'll have people who will go into these spaces to power scale debate and understand that some slings and arrows will come their way and it's with the territory, but they're not exactly looking for attacks on their character, attacks on their personal life, threats of violence, all that other ugly stuff. You get me? And to that, I agree. That shouldn't be a thing. And maybe there's a problem with power scalers figuring out where's the line. And that's when we get into the one who shall not be named. Well, screw it, I'm naming him now, Seth the Programmer. This was arguably YouTube's best known power scaling channel, not named Screw Attack. Well, now it's called Death Battle, but before there was a time where it was called Screw Attack. And he was certainly one of anime YouTube's biggest power scalers. Everyone talks about the big 3 in anime. Well, there was definitely a big 3 in anime power scalers when it came to Swag Kage, Clyde the Weeaboo, and of course, Seth the Programmer. He would present these really smart power scaling videos full of research and knowledge. But, and you knew there was a but coming, turns out Seth the Programmer is a horrible person who fostered a toxic power scaling community environment. Oh, and depending on who you talk to, he's also a groomer. But we'll get into it. See, about a year ago, Clyde released a video that exposed Seth the Programmer to be an awful person. First of all, it came out through that expose that some of the work done wasn't even Seth the Programmer's work, as Clyde would have to step in and do some of the work himself. And by that, I don't mean just editing for him, but I'm talking about actually researching the video topics, coming up with the calculations, and coming to the conclusions himself. But wait, there's more. He was crossing multiple lines, abusing his power in discords when it came to power scaling, fostered a toxic environment that seems like kind of a reward system for being as mean as possible, which would obviously lead to people crossing the line intentionally. And not least of which, the best way I could put this is, maybe a more appropriate name for Seth the Programmer would be Seth the Diddler, as it came out that he was inappropriately messaging a teenage girl. And as a result, he was canceled. kind of. His channel was still kind of up and running. So yeah, but he just never really got the same kind of notoriety again. In fact, it seems like his break off of YouTube is more self-imposed than anything. And if you want my more in-depth thoughts on it, I did make a video on the subject when it came out. But at the risk of beating a dead horse, I'll say this. It's good that he got exposed. Don't fall in the trap of doubling down on defending someone just because you like their work. Now, here's the problem. While it's a good thing he got exposed, it was unfortunate that he still has people willing to ignore all of the bad things he did. And as a result, people called that out. And that's not the problem. That's the good part. But I think there are a ton of YouTube channels as well as people who use that as their gotcha moment to say that these power scalers are degenerates. And honestly, I think this is where this whole saga goes from holding someone and their fans accountable to just being plain dumb. At the risk of making this sound like a whataboutism, we have streamers in different subcultures and mediums all over the place be exposed for the same thing, even worse, and still have people stand by them while still maintaining a toxic environment, just like Seth the Programmer does. Hell, the Dr. Disrespect controversy just happened. Also, Ava Tyson has their string of controversies that are coming out to light more and more with each passing day, and not a single soul has made a gotcha moment to any fandom or subgenre. So why, oh why, do we do this with anime fans and anime power scalers? If you don't like anime fans and anime power scalers, just say that. You don't have to attach any aspersions that are simply not correlated to the medium and the subgenre and the sub-community. Enough is enough. We have so many other power scaling YouTubers who make good content about things they like, and from my vantage point, they have environments that are just fine. They may play, for lack of a better term, their version of the dozens, but it's within their arena, and they know when to stop and start, because debates have friction but are fun, and that's that. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying not to call out the toxicity. I'm not saying there aren't problems with certain power scaling communities of not understanding where playing the game stops and starts, because Lord knows they do have that issue. And I'm certainly not saying that there isn't an inherent silliness to arguing over what a character in a TV show did when the writers are just doing it to look cool. I get all of that. But what I'm saying is there is beauty in taking a trip down nostalgia lane and doing power scaling to remember a character and their feats. Because the funny thing in all of this is when you let an anime fandom power scale, you know who the biggest winner in all of that is? All of anime fans, because that's what brings in the most fans. I know this because I see the numbers. So at this point, why not just let a power scaler live? Okay, that's the video. Like, share, and subscribe. Also comment below. I can't lie, I am swamped with work, so I'll try to respond to everything because you know I do, but it's gonna be hard. Okay, until next time, later.